I'd like to welcome everybody back to this week's episode of Money Mixology. As always, I am your host, Jason. And today's show is, again, going to have a guest with us. And this is going to be a little different. So, the previous shows, I've been bringing in sort of content experts in areas that were not actually finance, but were just loosely related to the field so that we could try to look at that intersection between our psychology and our money. But today, I'm bringing in a student who is about to become a planner. So he's about to enter the world of financial planning. So Ryan, welcome to the show.
Yeah, awesome to be here. Thanks for having me.
So go ahead and give the listeners a little bit of a background on where you're at, what your major is, what you're
Absolutely.
kind of getting ready to do.
My name's Ryan. I'm in my last semester at Wright State as a financial services major. I'm hoping to pursue a career in, wealth management, financial planning, that space. I'm soon to be starting my first job in the field. So a lot to look forward to, definitely some expectations going in.
Yeah. So one of the reasons I sort of asked you to be on the show was, you've had me as a professor for a couple semesters now. And so you're at least familiar with my sort of philosophy on the psychology influencing the money side really heavily. And we've had a lot of conversations about that. And so I know as you get ready to start your first job in the field, kind of give me your thoughts on what are you nervous about? What are you excited about? Just sort of what's your idea as you prepare to enter the professional field?
Yeah, definitely. I think the excitement and the nerves are kind of in the same areas. And we've had plenty of conversations about what to expect kind of early on. I remember talking to you maybe last semester about I had some misconceptions of what it would be early on, like dealing with higher net worth individuals. And
Right.
you kind of held me back, like explain to me, like, you're going to be eased into this. And you kind of gave me clear pictures on what to expect. As far as like real excitement is, I'm most excited to kind of take what I've learned in the textbooks, all this technical knowledge and actually be able to apply it or see it in a real world atmosphere. There's so many things where we learn it in class and it's like, yeah, you guys won't use this. But then there's stuff that's like, hey, focus in on this. This is going to be very applicable to almost every person you meet. So that's the type of stuff that I'm looking forward to and applying in the future.
Yeah, and I think you have sort of a unique challenge as you head out because you are planning to sit for the CFP, if I'm correct, at some point, right?
Eventually, yes.
Yeah, so you do need to maintain some of that like book technical knowledge, right? So you can pass the test, but then you also have to begin developing the actual real world technical skills that are required. Do you feel like when you were looking for your first job, again, we've talked about this quite a bit over the last few months.
Yes.
Have you focused more on the ability of that company to train you? Has that been an important piece of what you've looked for?
Well, training is definitely like a core requisite of what I need at this point in my career journey. But training in specific areas is what I'm mainly looking for.
Okay.
I mean, I could go get trained up on life insurance right now. That's a different type of training, but I want to be trained in an area where I can help someone in their full scope of their finances. Whether it be the 55-year-old couple that's just trying to land the plane into retirement, or something that we've talked at nauseum about, the little guy on the totem pole that hasn't started his financial journey yet, who just needs to make that budget for the first time and start to get to that place where they can land the plane later on in their life.
Yeah, and we talked about the fact that that's a difficult client because our true passion and heart is for that person, right? Because we
Absolutely.
think we can make a huge difference with them. The challenge is obviously, you still have to make a living. So if, typically in the world of financial wealth management, they have to have wealth to manage by definition. So I think there is a challenge there. But I know, just in speaking to you, I know it's really, really important to you that you get a chance to work with some of those beginners, if you will, the newbies to the field to help them get the foundation underneath them, get their feet on, kind of set on the right path. And I know you've mentioned that the place you work, you're actually kind of setting out on a journey to begin that, right? To start
Yes.
working with some people there. Tell me about that. What's going on there?
I can kind of set the scene a little bit. So, maybe a week or 2 weeks ago, my employer, I don't currently work at a financial firm institution, but it's just been my college job the past, 4 or so years. A week or two ago, my employer brought in Aflac to speak to everybody.
Sure.
And, it's kinda just like add-on health insurance, kinda
Little
policy,
disability
right? Yeah, a
stuff.
little bit,
Yeah.
exactly. And I'm sitting through this meeting, I'm probably listening the most out of everybody because I wanna hear what their spiel
Right.
is,
Right.
but they're explaining this, and the whole time I couldn't help but think, I feel like most of this information doesn't apply to the people that I work with, the peers that I'm with every single day.
Sure.
Like I said, that's kind of like add-on health insurance, that disability type thing. I'm under the understanding that most of the people that I work with don't even have regular health insurance. So the entire time I'm thinking, I'm like, well, I feel like if we could get to these people that I work with to a place where they can feel comfortable affording health insurance that's offered at a discount at work, I feel like we could get them in a better financial spot. And I took that meeting and kind of ran with it. I went to my employer and I asked him, like, hey, given the opportunity, would I be able to explain some simple financial concepts that I've learned to help these people kind of develop in their own financial journeys? And that's something that, they're very open about. And in speaking with them, I mean, the reason they have like an Aflac or, a Fidelity come in and speak to their employees is to benefit their employees for their own financial sake. So in speaking with them, I told them like, don't you think employee who isn't worried about money on a day-to-day basis, isn't stressing over
The car's not broken down.
absolutely. Don't you think that's the best worker you could have, most productive worker you can have, most focused worker you can have? And in spelling that out to them and kind of explaining my point of view on that, they're like, that's a great idea. They're letting me kind of take the ball and run with it. They trust me. And here soon, I'll be going over some very general, basic financial concepts. And I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think there's an important message there for a lot of the young planners and any of the students I have that are listening, or if you're newer to the field. Even though, to your point, when you go work for the new financial firm, they're not going to let you have access to the whales, right? You're not going to be touching the millionaires just yet.
Absolutely.
However, that doesn't mean that you can't use your knowledge for like positive impact in various areas, right? And so I always encourage a lot of pro bono work as you're able to when you first start your career, because you will get these sort of offshoot opportunities like this. And one, it helps you get better, right? As you learn the foundational pieces and get better at presenting it and
Yep,
that kind of
reps.
stuff. It's just reps, right? But it also then clearly the whole point is to help these individuals. Talk me through, what are you planning to sort of present? What kind of topics do you think you're going to cover? That type of thing.
Absolutely. So I actually don't have much time with my current employer because I will be starting my new job at a financial firm here shortly. Kind of, I wanted to break it into sessions, or it's kind of workshopy, but a little bit of me explaining where to go to find certain areas of their financial life. So you kind of need to assess where you're at first. So that's pretty much session one. Where are you at financially? It's hard to vision cast in the future when you don't know where you're at. So if
Sure.
I ask somebody how they're doing financially, is it a feeling like, "Oh, I feel all right"? What do you have to back up that
Right,
information?
right.
Do you have numbers on a paper? So I kind of want to talk to them, the B word, the budget word. It scares a lot of people off. So, but that's something I really want to look forward to, or have them look forward to. I want them to budget, look at their last 3 months of expenses, get used to looking at those things, understanding, wow, I spent a lot of money on Taco Bell last month. And I want them to have a clear understanding that when they hear the budget word, they get afraid.
Sure.
That's most
Yeah,
people.
yeah,
They associate with negative.
yeah.
I don't want to be controlled with my money.
Welcome to the show.
Absolutely. But I want them to understand, like, okay, this is just an assessment tool. So I'm going to write down my budget, look at my last 3 months, kind of get a spiel. And then moving forward, how can I change or better myself? Maybe instead of, eating out so much, I can go to Aldi and start prepping my lunches, my dinners, stuff like that. Simple things to help them get ahead financially. So I made a few worksheets for them to kind of go over in this first meeting. The main one is kind of a structured budget template. I think for the most part, many people, I'd be curious what the statistics would be. I think most people have never even attempted to make a budget.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm not sure we have great statistics on the
Ye-
attempts. That would have to be self-reported, I
Yeah.
suppose. But we do have, less than, it's like 1 in 5 Americans have a budget. So I mean, it's not very good even for the ones who do complete it.
And even in my time of budgeting, I know for a fact that it takes months, it takes a while to even hone in what the correct spending schedule will be for future months.
Sure.
So the sooner you get an idea of what you're working with in the past, you can correct your future. So that's why I'm trying to start ground up with that. And within this budget template, I'm just talking to them about, writing down your total income for the month, what your current necessity, like needs for spending are, what your current discretionary spending is, how to total up each of those categories and be able to determine if you're at a deficit monthly, a surplus, which hopefully we're at, and
Right.
then explain like what kind of getting to that surplus can mean for the future of their finances, building up an emergency fund, paying off high interest debt, stuff like that.
Well, and I think that what you'll find in this exercise, because this would be my experience in many cases, these folks are working full time, right?
Absolutely.
And so they actually probably do have access to more resources than they are aware of. And that's one of the sort of the beauty of the budget is we again to your point, we use it like a four-letter word. People hate the term budget, but when they actually do it, it can actually be very freeing because they sort of realize, "Oh, I'm actually better off than I kind of thought I was." And you're like, yeah, that's the positive of this. And in addition to that, you mentioned if you determine you have the deficit or the surplus, what I find in many cases that people actually they may have a small surplus, but they don't have any idea what to do with it. And it just kind of disappears because they're not even attempting to control it. Right. So if they could very much have a surplus if they were paying any attention, but because they're not, the surplus is just sort of thrown to the wind and whatever happens, happens. So how many people do you think you'll be working with, or how many are gonna be in these roughly?
It should be a smaller group, maybe 5 to 7 people.
Okay, and are you planning to so you're gonna do sort of the educational component. Are you then planning to, if they ask, to, like, work with them one-on-one to sort of go through their
Yeah,
scenarios?
absolutely. I told them, or I will tell them, that I'd love to be a resource for them if you have any questions. So during our first like physical meeting, they won't be like filling out their worksheets at that
It'll
time.
be
I want to
education.
teach them how to properly fill it out.
Sure.
If you're in the spot, kind of maybe where you need to go. If you're in that deficit, I mean, the only way to get out of that is spend less, make more. I mean, it's just kind of simple financial concepts that maybe these people haven't been exposed to before. And as I teach them how to fill out these things or even just think about these things, they can come back to me and, whatever resources they need, I can point them in the right
As
direction.
they expand.
Absolutely.
Well, and I think it's interesting. The show, as you know, is about the psychology, and I tend to be someone who believes the basics are really all you need to
Hmm.
become financially successful. But yet, to this point in the show, we really haven't talked about people who may not even know the basics. And so I do think it's important. That's one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you today because I knew this specific story about this employer situation. And I think it's really interesting because there is unfortunately a false assumption that everyone knows about finance. And while I think everyone could, there's lots of information out there on the internet and all kinds of stuff everywhere. Not all that great, but there's at least a lot of information out there. While that's happening, we sort of tend to forget that there are a lot of people who are just sort of trying to live their life every day and survive, and they don't have a moment to pause and even think about this stuff. So I think your ability to do the educational side up front is really important. Do you feel like you, as a young professional, will gain something out of the experience?
Absolutely. I mean, even just communicating with people in a financial context would be beneficial. And the basics, I love how, I mean, a financial life that's simple and basic, you can be just fine. It doesn't need to be this complicated, super diverse for sure, but super complicated plan that, I mean, that you don't even understand. So I want to get these people to a point where, like, when they begin investing, which they not might not be able to get to that early
Right
on,
away. Yeah.
we're building that foundation, but maybe once you get to that place where you can invest, that they understand what they're doing. Because I find that a lot of people, yeah, I'm in my 401k. I'm like, okay, explain it.
Oh, yeah, they can't. Yeah.
No shot. I
Yeah.
I think that's what people need, and it's not the most high level thing. Just be able to explain, what do you think a mutual fund is? You
In
saw
a
the
general
returns on
sense.
it, but can you explain it to me?
Yeah.
Do you know why you're in this? I think just people even knowing that type of information, one, it'll be able to help future generations, their children, be able to explain to that,
Mhm.
and help themselves, like, not be wary about financial products or certain situations they find themselves in, people trying to sell them things. As long as they know, I'm solid here, I understand this here, it's done this historically, it's proven to do this for a certain amount of time, I think we can get I don't know if I'm bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, I think it could change the landscape of America. I mean, we live in, like, the richest economy in the world, and tell me the percentage of people living paycheck to paycheck.
It's almost 70. Yeah.
Even if that's half wrong, that's crazy.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I mean, it's nuts. Yeah, I agree with you. Literally in class last week, the topic was annuities, And one of my challenges with annuities, they are a product that can be used very powerfully. There is a time and place for them, but the downside is they're complicated. They're hard for people to understand. And too many people who are in them just, they don't even understand them. And I do not like any product, regardless of finance or any other area of your life. I don't like you having a product or being sold a product you don't understand, you can't explain, right? It's totally side topic. It's similar to when people go get their car repaired. You walk in with absolutely no knowledge of how that engine works. So whatever the mechanic says is what the mechanic says. That's a dangerous place to put yourself because you're at the mercy of the person selling it to you, right? And so I think those are a challenge. And so that's why I really appreciate this approach you're taking towards the educational side of this, just to give them, arm them with some knowledge that'll help them, regardless of in the moment, can they take advantage of all these things? I mean, I'm teaching 18 and 19-year-olds these things, and they're not always in a position to do it either. But if they're armed for the future, I think it's really powerful. All right, so we're going to take a quick break here for some commercials, and then we will come back with Ryan and keep going. Stay with us. All right, welcome back to Money Mixology. I'm here with my guest and good student, Ryan. So, before the break, one of the things you had mentioned as you enter your career is that you have an interest in helping the people who are early in their journey and don't have a lot of the educational background or knowledge of this topic. Are there any other segments of the population or groups of people that you feel are underserved by our industry?
Underserved. When I think of underserved, I think just for example, firms I've interviewed at, you always hear in the industry, account minimums. I'm walking around seeing half a mil account minimums, quarter mil, half
Yeah.
account minimums. I've talked to many professionals about even you. I'm like, why is there not a emphasis on building clients into those kind of subcategories of,
Mhm.
net worth or what have you? I mean, as far as I know it's just not profitable at a certain point. That's something I would want to work with and see if it can be monetized in a sense where we're not just ripping 2% off of people that have no money, but maybe growing clients into the ideal prospect or
Yeah, I know, and I'm gonna miss the name. I can't remember what it's called, but one of your fellow students, Robert,
Mhm.
works for a firm here in Dayton, and they have like an allowance for a certain number of clients that fall in that
Yep.
category. And I can't remember what they call those clients, but basically with an understanding that these are people that are on the right path, they just don't have those account minimums yet, and they want them to be able to grow into future clients. So I mean, to me, there is actually like a business case for that to be in place,
Yeah.
right? As you get your future clients. The other piece, though, I think that you and I have talked about in the past is how it gets structured because I tend to prefer fee based myself. But again, that's very, very biased by the fact that I'm an educational type of person where I want to teach the person how to do their financial controls, not have them pay me to do it forever. And so those clients who are in the gap you're speaking of, so your fellow coworkers, they don't fall in that gap because right, they're not even on the path yet to building wealth. But those who are on the path, but may have 25 or $50,000 worth of net investable assets. They're on the right path. They're
Yep.
just young. They're early in the journey, and those people I think can really benefit from meeting with me maybe once a year and paying me a couple $100 just as a straight fee to review all their stuff, their insurance, their whatever it may be, their purchases for their housing, whatever advice they need. So I think there is a place for that, but to your point, the firms don't really love those because they can't monetize it at a high level, right? There's got to be a profit margin there, which I get. I understand the business side, but it is tough. So is that something that you feel like you could take on early in your career where because you're not gonna be dealing with the whales anyways?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think anything early on, handling clients and then kind of, you know, even the clients that are above that foundational level, they've done the things we talked about in the first segment. They're at a place where they can start investing. They've proven that they can go on the path. I'd love to sit down with those people and kind of iron out. And I know you covered on an earlier episode, automation,
Sure.
showing people the power of automation. And I actually don't like the term set it and forget it because I think
Get it, but yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
there should be those periodic yearly reviews, twice a year, maybe you look over things. I think showing people the power of that would be, amazing for their financial future.
Yeah, there's something to that, and you're really tapping into why I teach, right? There's a reason I don't do this field for a living anymore because I struggled with a lot of the same internal conflicts of trying to figure out how do I help the people I really want to help while trying to monetize it.
Yeah.
And turns out I just said I'll go teach the people that are going to do it in the future. But I do think there is a really big benefit. I also think that in terms of impact, those are the people you can hit the hardest because if you start working with a 55-year-old who has $1 million, you're making a wealthy person wealthier. And I'm not against that either. Those people need help as well. They need help retaining their money, right? Avoiding
Yep.
taxation, all that stuff. There's powerful tools there that you can help those people. But that's not the same thing as changing the trajectory of somebody's life, perhaps generationally changing their kids will never suffer from those same things either if you're able to fix it. So for me, that was what kind of was my driver within the field in general. And you mentioned earlier you want to be what I would call a true CFP, which is the holistic attempt to help them in all areas of their financial
Absolutely.
picture. That's wonderful. But do you have an area of the CFP that you sort of enjoy more that you think you might want to specialize in? Like I'm an insurance person, as you
Yep.
know. Is there an area that you kind of just piques your interest the most?
This is really something I've thought about a lot. I kind of gravitate naturally towards the retirement side because I feel like, I took retirement planning with you.
Yeah, you
Um,
had an amazing professor, that's why.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. But a lot of the stuff we learn is pretty technical things.
Mhm.
And I think being able to explain those high level concepts to people in a way that they can understand, that motivates me. That's all I want to do. I think no matter what I do, some form of financial education will be the
A
cornerstone.
component of it.
Absolutely. Just being able to explain these high level concepts, or even not the super high level concepts, and putting them into bite sizes so that people can understand and laying them out for them so that they feel confident in their financial journey. That just, that makes me happy even talking about.
Yeah, I can see you getting excited. That's
Yeah.
that's great. That's what we want, right? Like we want a career where we feel like we're making a huge difference. The other piece that I think is interesting about the retirement side, at least the way the course is structured, that course is largely about going to businesses and helping them understand the legalities of setting up a retirement plan. So you're not just impacting Joe, you're impacting Joe and his 15 employees or whatever, which is huge.
Yeah, exactly. And I can't help but think that that might transition to like kind of what I'm doing with um, my own
Employer.
employer. It kind of transitions into that. If I get comfortable speaking to different businesses, who's to say, I couldn't go to others and
You can be the Aflac insurance.
yeah, exactly. That's what I want.
No, I mean, yeah, you're right. You would there would be a huge educational component built in if you set up the 401k or 403b, whatever it may be for that company. I mean, the employer I work for full time, every year, the company that does our 403b sends a person in to just give us the spiel and kind of explain what it is. And, I'm not sure they do a great job of it. My employer usually asks me to go up there and do it afterwards, but neither here nor there. You would have a chance to do that. And it would get you in front of a lot of those clients that you're talking about that are in that gap, right? You would be able to go into these companies, set it up, get them a really good program that they actually can use, but then also be able to talk to these, we say newbies, I guess, for lack of a
Newbies
better
or even
term.
tweeners.
Yeah, yeah,
People that have the shovel, the income to even they have the income to do damage, like not too much damage, but
good damage.
good damage. Build a financial foundation that's, millionaire by 65, stuff like that. And just being able to explain to them, like show them the numbers, like and motivate them to pursue that themselves. If I can give people 25% of the way I felt when I first started learning about personal finance, I know I've done my job. I started as a marketing major and, went through 3 years of school thinking like, I guess I'll end up in sales or something. And then I opened up a personal finance book given to me by a mentor high school teacher of mine that was sitting on my nightstand for 3 years as a high school graduation gift. And it opened my eyes and gave me this passion. And if I can give that to somebody else, I'll know I've done my job.
What book was it?
It's The Automatic Millionaire.
Oh,
So
yes.
when you had your episode on automation, I was like, "Oh my god, I listened to it like 3 times." I
Yeah,
was
The
like,
Automatic Millionaire is a great book. So for all the listeners out there, it's a wonderful book. That was one of the first steps in my journey of sort of reframing the way I viewed finances, that it was less technical and more behavior based. He didn't explain it in that way. That wasn't his lens,
but it's exactly what it
but it's
was.
what it was, right? Yeah, that book was great. Yeah, that's fantastic. I was super hoping you weren't going to say a different one, and you know exactly what I
Yes.
mean.
No,
You're
sir.
probably smart enough not to say that on my show. Yeah, I think that's really cool, and I do have a couple former students who specialize in setting up retirement plans for companies and what have you, small businesses. That was a weird way to say business. I'm not sure what happened right there. My face broke. But they enjoy it because it does give them access to a different clientele base that, wouldn't normally seek out a financial planner per se, but that definitely need the help. So I think that's a really cool exposure that you can get into and go do. I also really like having conversations with my students because just candidly, and I think you will fall in this boat in the next few years, there are many of my former students who are so much better at financial planning than I am because they've gone into the field and become really good experts at it. And your passion, I think, is what drives a lot of that. And you remind me of some of those former students that have just gone on to do awesome stuff because they genuinely care about helping the people they're working with. And I think that's the key to this industry.
Yeah.
But in terms of getting people to believe at 25% of your passion level, I need you to talk to my wife because so I've been doing this for years and I can't get her to be excited about it.
Yeah, I might
So
have to lower my
your
expectations
expectations,
there.
yeah. So that's a cool area to focus on. We're going to take another short break, and then when we come back, we're going to finish up. I'm going to give Ryan a chance to kind of hit me with some questions about entering the workforce and becoming a planner professionally long term. What does it mean? So stay with us, and we'll be back shortly. Welcome back, everybody, for our final segment for today's show. So, Ryan, I wanted to kind of throw this open to you to see if there's any questions you have as you begin to enter this field in general or your professional career in a more broad sense.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, kind of as I enter into the workforce and start, meeting with clients early on, clients that are definitely much older or further along in their financial journeys than I am, something I've really thought about is how to quickly build rapport or that credibility with those clients so that they trust me. Maybe not immediately. I understand it's like it's not supposed to be, "Hi, how are you? How much money do you have?" But building that rapport with people that they trust what I'm saying, that's kind of the stuff I think about early on.
Yeah. So, you and I we've had these conversations. I mean, this is imposter syndrome,
Yep.
like straight up, right? And it's legit to some extent. But there's a couple things there that I think are really important for yourself and anyone else that's and especially this field where it's a trust-based field. A couple things. First, recognize that you already have more knowledge on this field than 99% of Americans. Their age doesn't necessarily solve that problem. And I'm not sure the age of your coworkers as an example, but I assume you have some older folks working there, relatively speaking, and yet they don't know it. It was one of the lessons I learned early in my career that while I was young, I actually had the training. They didn't, right? And that's one of the beauties of the CFP in terms of building credibility is it tells the world, I may be young, but I have the national credential that's very hard to get. And so I'm capable of doing these high level things from a technical side. The other piece that I think is important in this field, and it will never not be important, even when you're the most experienced planner in the industry, is people, that old saying, people don't care what you know till they know you care. Building credibility with someone is equal parts technical skill and equal parts, do you care about my future? Do you care about me or am I a paycheck for you? And so if somebody senses that you're a paycheck or they are a paycheck for you, excuse me, they're not going to use you as their planner and they don't care if you're the best there is. Right. That would be my advice is to lean into the relationship side because people hire planners they like.
Absolutely. And I think that's the perfect way to frame it and way to approach it. The last thing I would want a client to feel if I'm meeting for them for the first time is any type of sales breath, I'm just looking to get, a quick buck off of you. I want them to feel immediately that I care about you and I think you can do it and motivate them. And we're a team. I'm in it with you.
Yeah, and I think that there's no harm and there's no concern on the client's side of the table with you making money. People have no problem paying professionals,
Yep.
right? That's one of the misnomers is that folks are upset that they're paying a fee or a percentage or whatever it is. They're not. That's not an issue at all, as long as they're getting value for it,
Yep.
right? If I'm going to hire the best brain surgeon in the world, I understand I'm going to pay him. That's fine, right? Fix my head, which in my case, my wife would argue probably needs to be done. So not a brain surgeon, probably a shrink, but that's beside the point. So I think that's one of the things that as a young person, you also have to recognize is that you do bring professional value. The one thing I would caution you on is this is a field that tends to get taken advantage of a lot. And so you'll have a lot of friends, a lot of family who you'll make a lot of new friends who are like, "Oh, he's a planner. I can
Mhm.
ask this guy for advice." And you're like, "This is what I do for a living."
Yeah, we
Again,
go back. Help me out, bro.
yeah, exactly. You wouldn't if you had, if your best friend was a dentist, you would be like, "Hey, would you come over to my house and fix my teeth for me real quick?" Like that's just insane. You'd be like, "No, come to my clinic and pay me."
Yeah.
I might give you a small discount, but just I would caution you that because of what we do, you'll always get. I mean, I go to my kids' sporting events and people are like, "Hey, what do you think about this stock?" And I'm
Wow.
like, "Oh my gosh, I'm not a day trader. Like, what are we doing here?"
Yeah.
And I know nothing about you, right? Like, you're asking me for financial planning advice. And I don't know anything about who you are. So just be aware of those kind of possible roadblock, hiccup kind of
Yeah.
things.
I never even thought about that.
Yeah, you're definitely going to get hit up a lot on that stuff. You get asked for advice all the time. You're like, "What? Who are you? Have I met you before?"
Literally.
Yeah.
That's good. Something I kind of had a question for you. Obviously, that was a question. You're an adjunct at the college. You work in the K-12 space. Something in my short life of 22 years, I've heard at nauseum about, kind of building the basics of finances. Well, they never taught us that in school.
Yeah,
Well, we
right.
never learned that.
Yeah,
Would have been nice.
should have told us how to write a check.
Well, here in Ohio, since fall 2020?
Yeah, 2 or 3 years.
Around
Yeah.
a couple years,
Yeah.
financial literacy has been a required course
Mhm.
in a high school system.
Sure.
And you as an educator, you work in the K-12 space, you work in higher education and teach a college level personal finance course. Have you seen or followed that at all? And
So, yeah, this is actually perhaps one of the few things you and I haven't discussed in the past. I was actually the person brought in by the state of Ohio to advise on what was going to be in that curriculum.
wow.
So, because of two things. One, they knew I taught it at the university, and then also because of my K-12 job, I have a lot of connections at the Department of Ed. So they brought me in to discuss it, and candidly, I wouldn't say it went perfect. And what I mean by that is that there's a couple of problems with the way we teach financial literacy in high school. Do I think it should be taught? Of course. I mean, given my history, that's obviously a
Yeah.
yes. But there's a few things. First of all, there's a few topics that research show us very clearly cannot be taught to young people in a classroom setting because they don't have any connection to it, right? So like trying to teach a 15-year-old about how a mortgage works
Yep.
is just sort of nonsensical. So I think that there's some ways of teaching it that are not great. There's also the problem of who's teaching it. And so, when you take if you do a CCP class, College Credit Plus in Ohio, and so you're a high schooler who's taking it at the college level, you end up in my course, right? In most cases. And so you're taking that class from a CFP college professor who does this all the time. But if you're just at a regular high school, you're very likely taking it from
Your
the
history
government,
teacher.
yeah, the history teacher, the janitor, the bus driver on his break, like it because there were no requirements. Now Ohio is fixing that. They're working on the credentialing of who can teach it, and so I think there's that. You also have really wide range of inconsistency in the materials being used, and so not everybody's getting the sort of the same experience. I mean, if you took American history in Cleveland or you took American history in Columbus, they might technically be using a different textbook,
Right.
but you're learning the same material.
Yep.
There's Ohio standards. That's not there's standards for what you're supposed to learn, but it can be very, very, very different in terms of the materials being used. So that gets a little weird. Final part is that just like any education, and this goes back to what you're wanting to do with sort of the sessions and the workshops and things like that. I would just throw this out there as a reminder. People can't learn this stuff in one blast, but that's how we teach it to the high schoolers. They have
Mm,
one course when they're 17 years old, and we go, okay, you're done. Go be a rich millionaire. But we don't teach any other subject that way, right? Imagine showing up in 11th grade and going, okay, we're going to teach you everything you need to know about math. And you get 9 weeks to do it or whatever, 18 weeks. We should be breaking financial literacy down into components and starting it as early as like second, third grade. Like they should be learning what a savings account is when they're in fourth grade, just so they at least conceptually start to stack these things over time, the way we teach everything else in K 12 education. So I like the fact that we're doing it, and there's about 20 or 25 states that are now doing it. I don't know the exact number. So we are headed in the right direction. We've just stumbled a few times because it's new and we haven't really
yeah,
gotten great at doing it yet. But I do think it's a positive in a general
very
sense.
much so.
Yeah.
And I'm super happy to hear that. I like that idea of kind of starting them even like, in primary school or
Sure.
whatever. It's all fun and games till your fifth grader asks about your 401k at work, though.
Right, Dad, are you putting away 20% through an automatic investment
What's your
program?
match,
That's
Dad?
right. Yeah. Actually, that'd be hilarious when they start asking. But I mean, it's the same strategy I use for my children,
Yeah,
right? And so I would want other people to be able to have that same experience. However, my kids are getting it at home, obviously, because their dad teaches it. But I would want other kids to have that same thing. I mean, I phased in the information for my kids. They started with allowances, and then they had debit cards, and then they moved on to their stock accounts. Like we phased things in, and so now my two sons that are here, they're 18 and 19 years old, and they have IRAs with they're fully funded. Like they I wouldn't call them experts by any stretch of the imagination, but they're far ahead of their peers.
yeah,
And it's not because they learned it all in one shot. They actually did take that class,
absolutely.
but it was phased in over time.
Yeah, and that takes me right to I think it was last week's show where you talked about relating finances to like the gym.
Yeah, for
A
my kids.
beginner doesn't go to the gym and just start putting up 4 plates each side.
That's right.
I mean, my advice to people who are trying to get in shape is like, just go. Just
Period.
go.
Yeah.
So that kinda even relates to, like, what I was talking about earlier with my workshops or session idea.
Mhm.
Know where you're at. Just go to the bank statements. Just go, understand it.
Yeah.
Before you start lifting up those heavy weights, it's a progression. That's really
And I think what your workshop is going to do, and I think you'll find this to be pretty powerful, is it will remove the taboo nature of it. It will remove the stigma about even thinking about money. So if they come away from that just saying, this is at least something I should give some thought to. It begins the mental process of breaking it down and introducing it to their world. And so I don't like the people that believe like, well, I could never learn money. And I'm like, but you could cite every statistic for your favorite football team from the last 10 years.
absolutely.
Like you obviously can do this thing.
Mhm.
You just have to choose to want to do it.
Yeah, or, I'm not very good at math. That's something I hear. I'm like, "I'm not good at math. I
Yeah.
promise I'm not good at math."
Well, that's the automatic millionaire. It doesn't matter if you're good at
Mhm.
math. You just tell your company, take 20% of my paycheck, set it and forget it. I
Yes.
loosely speaking,
Yeah.
set it and review it. Maybe that's a better term.
Yeah.
But, it doesn't matter if you're good at math. Who cares? The
Yeah.
stock market doesn't care how good you are at math. It just
Mhm.
cares you put your money in. So, yeah, there's a lot of things you can sort of give people tools again as you progress, as you stack on over time.
Yeah, and giving people those tools, it's just I feel like it can unlock just so much in their lives. I mean, I touched on, better workers as a result
Mhm. No, sure.
of that financial I'm not stressing over, my car payment or
Which
my
means they then get raises because they're better workers, right? So
Mhm,
it
and
starts to
then when they make more money, the government should be pushing this heavily because people making more money, being better
pay
workers,
more
pay more
taxes.
taxes.
Well, until you're super rich, then you'll pay any taxes, but that's beside the point.
You have a point. But I think it just there's no negative to that education, and I'm so happy that they're pushing that onto these students, whether it's at a beginning phase, but even just as it progresses, I'm so happy that they have that information to go to.
Well, and what I really look forward to for you, what I would be excited for you as a future planner is those moments in time that capture the very essence of what we do. And I was telling you at the break, the best example of this for me was Mike, who was on my show
Yep.
a few weeks back, who's a client, roughly speaking. He doesn't pay me, but so he's a friend I help. He's one of the people that takes advantage of me. But when I helped him and his lovely wife Sharon, when I reviewed their financials, that moment where I got to tell them, "You're done, you can retire," was an amazing feeling. Like, the idea that something I had done, and they did it, to be clear, it was all them,
Yeah.
but applying my technical knowledge to be able to reaffirm and to give them the peace of mind, like, "I promise you, based on my professional experience, you are ready to retire," was an incredible experience. And so I look forward to the day that you get to do those things. Or if you get a young person that you're helping and you convince them that to start putting away $50 a month for their child's college, like in a 529 plan, that moment of knowing I just changed the trajectory of generations potentially is just such an awesome feeling. And it is the payoff for what we do
Mhm.
in this field.
I just feel like satisfaction like that can only be achieved for people that maybe might not otherwise have gotten there without the tools. They did the work, they did the heavy lifting.
Sure.
We just told them to go to the gym,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
I don't know if that level of satisfaction can be achieved if you get a guy with 10,000,000 to 20,000,000.
Yeah, I mean, I think it may be on a smaller scale, but
Yeah.
you're right. I mean, it's obviously different. It's like, oh, you can buy your third island. You're like, oh, congratulations. I so there is definitely a difference there, and it's one of the reasons. Going back to the very beginning of today's show, talking about you and I sort of share a heart for newbies or tweeners, right?
Mhm.
Like these people earlier in their journey, because it's where we can make a really, really fundamental impact. And the folks, this thing you're doing with your employer is, I mean, you're not even being paid for it. You just sort of saw a moment where you could help. And I want to really, really emphasize that those opportunities are when you change things, like when you take a moment, because if you could be paid to do it, somebody else would already be being paid to do it. These moments when you can go out and give of your knowledge and your experience and your skills to make a difference will be the most meaningful for you. And you'll grow a ton from those things. And you have no idea. These gentlemen that you're working with, they may not have a lot of resources. They might be early in the journey, but you don't know that their sister's not just loaded. You have no idea. Or maybe the owner of the business has a lot more funds than you are aware of, and he starts to realize this is a really good guy who's trying to help my employees. I want to start working with him too. There's all these opportunities that open up from just being genuine. And I know you're not trying to market this, you're not trying
Yeah.
to prospect, but this idea that you can get yourself out there and be shown as a genuine planner can make a huge
Yeah,
difference.
naturally extend those branches and connections, and only positive things can come of it, really.
So we've got like 1 minute left on the show. Do you have any final questions or comments?
I wanna thank you again for having me on. I mean, I'm following up professors, doctors, and millionaires.
No, you've been the best. Don't worry about it. Well, I guess am I legally obligated to say my sons were the best? I think probably to have a safe home life. Although at least I could talk today. That show was a train wreck. I couldn't even speak. But no, I appreciate you being on here. I'm super excited for your future. I love being able to see my students have massive success as they go on. Best of luck with anything. Clearly, you can reach out
Yeah.
to me if you have any questions. But all right, well, I appreciate you being here. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us again this week. We'll be back next Saturday with another guest. Everyone have a wonderful week, and we'll talk to you later.